My name's Aaron. Welcome back to my channel with extra dancing hands. Today it's slightly different because, as you know, I'm very busy. I am either up at 4 o'clock and I'm designing fragrances, and then at 8 o'clock I go to the lab and I have a crimping unicorn who comes in the house where we fill and crimp 2 days of the week, and then we send out the orders. Go on really early. I set it really early now so we can get out same day, try to get out the same day for you on Wednesday, and then we have a few orders Thursday, Friday, Saturday's mammoth. Monday we're in sending out what we've got, so I don't have much time to do these educational videos. I really got a cool video coming up, but I need to really go back into my notes and make sure I really understand the content for you, because if I'm giving out really degree level information on little molecules, which is what I love very much, then I need to make sure it's absolutely right, and I'm never going to give up false information. So I am going to talk to you today about something completely different. I'm going to talk to you about the safety aspect and a little bit about costing and a little bit of things about the perfume industry and help you understand what really goes on. So I don't know how long this video is going to be. So I'm going to talk to you today about the safety aspects of a fragrance, and I'm going to use my fragrance Slut, which is the best-selling fragrance I do. And there's some people out there so addicted to it, they send me pictures of 3 or 4 sluts, and I love it, and I find it completely amazing. And again, I want to thank you for all your support. You are supporting a UK independent brand. There was Only Me, there's Video Unicorn, and there's Crimping Unicorn. So I'm very happy to be taking on stuff. Got new packaging, don't know when it's going to be here. You are doing it all. We're changing lives, saving dogs' lives, cats' lives, and we are supporting mental health charities, making this world a better place. So, to get a fragrance to market is long-winded and has to be done correctly. So, I'll give you 2 examples. For Slut, I went into a hyper creativity mode when I was working very long hours and sleeping like 2 hours a night and just trying to get it right. And I get down 80% of it very fast. I sort of, by thinking in my brain, I get it down, and I subsequently perform hundreds and hundreds of experiments to manipulate the jasmine, manipulate this, manipulate that. As you know, jasmine can become very dominant, and I have to make sure with Slut that the jasmine is manipulated beautifully. Because then you get and a good perfume, you should get a journey, you should get a story. So with Slut, you get the citrus notes, you get the top notes of neroli, the citrus, then you go down to the ozonic compounds, then the jasmine, then the petitgrain, then the musk and the woods, and then you have the the massive amount of aroma chemicals supporting it. So you are getting in that case, I think it's about 25% naturals to 65% aroma chemicals, and then you have a lot of BHG, all these other chemicals. So with that aspect, it took about 3 weeks to develop, and it was very long hours. With Chris's work, it's taken months because I do a submission, I send it up to him, he tells me I want it to be like this, and this. So you have to think with, if it's an industry and you're dealing with a perfumer, and then you're dealing with marketing, and then you're dealing with somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, all these people make the decision of me. I'm then doing all of this myself and come up with the name, the concept, which is, I'm going to talk a bit about costing and different things. So once I've done that, it then goes in for a CPR, or a cosmetic product safety assessment, and that has to be aligned with IFRA, and IFRA sort of set the levels of every single raw material that you will use in a perfume. So this is the safety assessment for Slut. I'm not going to show you all of it because I have some confidential information, but I'll be showing you some of it. That is the amount of raw materials. I would say, some of them are printed on like 2 pages. It goes over, I shall show you in a minute. But that is the amount of raw materials in Slut. It is not 4 or 5 raw materials, it is incredibly complex. So when you buy it and you smell it, the development process is very long for me to make sure that they're all right. So Slut actually passed this safety assessment, and in 2013 the European government said that animal testing for cosmetics and cosmetic raw materials is now illegal. Now, yes, there are some companies that supply the pharmaceutical trade, and there are these companies that supply the pharmaceutical trade, the food trade, and the cosmetics companies. They still do the animal testing for some parts of it, but generally speaking, if it's a raw material that does not go into anything else than cosmetics, it will not be animal tested. It will have other testing done to it. So before that, it was the safety assessment was about 3 pages long. And if you're going through your safety assessment things, your safety assessments should be robust, should be really heavy duty. It should look like this. It should not be a 3-page computer printout. There are specific laws and regulations that have to be covered. Everything has to be proven. This is a scientific legal document. So we set it out like with the formulation. So the formulation is 3 pages long. Then we have abbreviations used in this document. Obviously, there's a lot of scientific documents, a lot of scientific things that when we give it out to our customers, we like it to look like this. And there are things like body weight, gram, blah, blah, blah. It's just LD50, lethal dose 50, micrograms, milligrams, all that stuff is there, so our customers can absolutely read it. We then go on to microbiological quality or challenge testing. And it's given quite a few different names. I like to call it microbiology testing. I did have microbiology testing in university, microbiology training in university, so I can actually challenge test. Isn't that interesting? So I know how to do it, which isn't that good in these times, eh? And how we do it is we take a sample and we split it into 10. And the product is then infected with gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria, fungus and mold. And then it's left. And we then see we have a control, which was with the plate with nothing in it. And we look to see over a period of weeks, over 4 times a week, if any growth is under a microscope. If after 4 weeks it shows no growth, it means it passed its challenge test. It is suitable so all cosmetics have to go for that. There is a caveat in that. Products which contain massive alcohol or are completely oil-based don't have to have challenge testing, because these microbes cannot live in a massive amount of oil. Just can't. They need water to survive, and they cannot survive in alcohol. And perfume tends to be between 70 and 80% alcohol. This virus actually can live. The alcohol content has to be 70%, so your hand gels should be 70% alcohol. It won't kill this virus. So don't go buying it from people who aren't safety assessed. So that is that. So this didn't undergo challenge testing because it's so much alcohol in it, it would kill it. So it's naturally preserving. The next thing is a statement on the purity. So for this, I provided all the scientific documents to show that the products that I was using were at a pharmaceutical grade, which is 99.9% pure. Storage assumptions, it's quite a lot of dry stuff, serious or desired effect. Animal testing. As I mentioned, in 2013 it was banned. So this statement says there's a EU directive. This statement says that this product has not been tested on animals for repeat dose toxicity, skin sensitization, carcinogenity, reproductive toxicity, and toxinokinesis. So, and all data that was compiled before this is compiled before 10th the 5th, 2013, and that was the shut-off date. And around that date, I was actually working in industry, and we had a massive document come through for the EU, and we had to try and put together one of these safety assessments out of documents, which was horrendous. This sort of stuff, all cosmetic chemistry, I know really, really well. I know this backwards, so if you have any questions, please leave it below and I will answer them for you. Then we go into part B. So part A was about reach, toxicological summary, effects of the finished product on the organ, fragrance data, the conclusion. A lot of it I can show you. GMP, good manufacturing practice, animal testing declaration, and reach an assessor's credential. And for an assessor, a cosmetic safety assessor, they have to be a chemist, biologist, doctor. They have to have studied science at degree level with honours, and they have to have training in toxicology. toxicology, I had training for toxicology twice. I didn't do any animal testing, but I had the training to understand the mechanisms behind it and understand why compounds would cause the effect in the body that they do. So I had quite a lot of training. I actually did medicinal chemistry, which was a year of learning about drug manufacturing, learning about drugs, amino acids, toxicology. So I'm very well versed from my degree, and from my first year we did a term of toxicology. So then we have the formulation again. The next thing is, again, it's set out with, you would have the CAS number, then we have the INCI number, and then we have the maximum concentration. That's how it should be set out. And if you're going for a safety assessment, you have to write your formulations out specifically. That's why when you're doing your formulations, please write it up with your percentages and the name. We then translate the name over from the trade name over to the chemical name, and some of these names are weird, like they would be called, let's see, ISO Super. ISO Super is industrial use. The name for ISO Super is Mammoth. Go and have a look it up. It is a mammoth chemical name. Thank God I'm not saying that. If you hear any coughing, I apologise. The woman next door is coughing furiously, which is freaking me out with all this sort of viral epidemic. Yes, I don't want to walk around with a gas mask in here. So, an IFRA code for this is 4B, which is hydroalcoholic for shaved skin, and this is to be applied up to 4 times a day. The daily exposure is 0.00327 grams, kilograms body weight day. Yes. The exposure time is 10800 seconds. The next thing I want to talk to you is something I've spoken to you briefly in another thing. It's called a margin of safety. And the margin of safety is a really important calculation. It's the main way we calculate whether a raw material is safe, and we have to do this for all raw materials. So let's say slut contains about 60 raw materials. We have to work through the margin of safety through each one. And the margin of safety is calculated from the SED, I can't remember this offhand, and the NOAL. And the NOAL is the number that's taken from animal testing. So there are numbers that are going to be taken from animal testing, and when we divide one against the other, we come up with S, which is the margin of safety. If you do this for so many years, you just sort of forget. Systematic exposure dose. So systematic exposure dose divided by the NOAL gives you the margin of safety. The margin of safety has to be over 100. And you get all these numbers. If it's below 100, it fails, and the whole thing fails. You have to do that for every single raw material. Obviously not going to give too much away. I'm trying to think about what I can give away. You know rose, I use rose in everything. The reason I use rose in everything is because I find it the most beautiful raw material. I'll be talking about rose and also a few other raw materials if I can get some of these videos done. Now I'm taking someone else on. I hope to have more time where I can do a bit more heavy duty videos, because I know there's scientists on here. So rose is my most favourite compound because it contains, I did have a look, and I think it's about over 100 compounds. And some of its compounds I think are so beautifully done. And rose tends to be dominant in a naturally phenylethyl alcohol and citronellal. And those two are what you would perceive as a rose smell. But rose has so many different things to it in there. It has a lot of really beautiful compounds, which the nerols and the so it has a slight compounds that translate over to neroli, so it's quite light and floral. I find it really, really exquisite. I just love it very, very much, and I put it in everything. And I put it in everything because it makes things smell very expensive, and it makes things smell incredibly complex. If you think I'm putting one thing in with over 100 compounds in, immediately my perfume with 90 raw materials has 180 raw materials. 180 raw materials smells much more complex. But for me, when I add rose, it gives it a green, sweet feel to it. It is a definite living resonance. It is unfortunate that it is so expensive, but there is rose in slut. And with rose, we have to work out the concentration of, so this, you have the fragrance allergens in this. You've seen all the fragrance allergens, and the fragrance allergens are what will cause skin irritation. Some of them are photosensitive, and some of them are just very, very irritating because they can react with the biological system. So in this form of rose which I'm using is has 7 raw materials in: citral, citronellal, eugenol, geraniol, linalool. Let me just check. Yes, there's linalool, and we have to work out. let's say I put rosin at 0.1%, we have to work out what citral at 0.3% is. Then we work out the concentration, then we work out the SED, then we divide that into the NOAEL, and you get your margin of safety. We have to do that for each allergen. So this is why it's such a heavy duty document, because you can guarantee that the amount of rows I'm using, those allergens are put together. Now, a question that you might be thinking is, what about if I'm using another raw material, let me just say, this does have sweet orange, so let's say this has sweet orange in, and sweet orange generally has limonene and limonol in it. So let's say the concentration of limonene and limonol is worked out safely. We then have to add them together to see whether the overall limonene exposure 4 times a day at 0.000 whatever is safe for use. And so that is something else that we have to take in control. We have the conclusion, labelling requirements. I will show you one thing on here, which you all know, that alcohol is used in the formulation. The rest of it I can't show you because it's my work. So we have, this is what, if you're getting your safety assessments, what it should look like. If it doesn't, then it's not good. It's set out in a specific way. So we have here. This is just for alcohol. So alcohol, I will be reading you some technical information from this. So the systematic exposure dose, which is the calculations made up from the body weight and the concentration, and it's all sort of divided with the little calculation. And then the NOAEL, which comes from animal models, is 2,000 milligrams kilogram body weight per day. Those two are divided into each other. And the MOS for this is 6,392 and 79, and that means this is massively safer than its concentration. So the alcohol in this passes. We have to go through each raw material with this and do all of this. Then there's lots of notes here explaining about human trials, what happens when humans ingesting it, drinking it, injecting it, all that stuff. There's lots of notes about what to expect, because this then has to get turned into a material safety data sheet. The information from this goes on to there with some other information about reach and things. The first thing, which is we have to work out whether what happens if you ingest raw material. It's called an LD50, and an LD50 is, and I want to say that all these calculations are taken from pre-2013, which means that no animals were physically harmed, but we still use their data. And an LD50 is taking a percentage of animals, maybe 100, what was in this case rabbits, giving them a maximum amount and seeing how much of 50% kills them. So that is on there, and it says that, I really don't like reading it to be honest with you, but it's using old animal data, it's not using, and this is why I didn't go into that formal for toxicology. And when I do the safety assessments, I don't really, so we have a toxicological database, I don't really try not to think about it, to be honest. Next thing is what happens when it goes onto your skin, and that is dermal irritation, LD50. And that is the, they generally put on 2,000 milligrams per kilogram, and then leave it on there and see what happens. And in this case, it said that no rabbits died. There's a bit of irritation. That's quite a high concentration for a lengthy period of time. Next thing is inhalation toxicity. And that is the same thing. It is basically putting a dose, in this case it was 2,000 milligrams per litre for 10 hours to the rabbit, and then there's lots of data about it. They put on a mask and they're breathing it for 10 hours at 2,000 milligrams per litre, and they said that they felt a bit drunk and they recovered after 4 hours. Chronic oral toxicity, and chronic oral toxicity is the rats in this case were fed at a low dose for a long period of time, and then see what happens in the body. The next things are genotoxicity, and that is using cells from a mouse, and they take the mouse and they put the compound into the cells and they see whether it mutates. And again, the next test is to see whether it affects the reproductive toxicity. So that says whether if a compound's taken over a long period of time and then the animals have children, whether the children are effective. Obviously we don't want, there's been history of horrible drugs that will affect children. How they do that now is through testing on bacteria, and they can see if the bacteria mutates. So they don't need to do that anymore, because the I think it's the coli responds at a DNA level similar to us. And we also have the eye test, there's Dre's test. So all these different toxicological pathways are where the cosmetic we're getting. We have to do that for each raw material, and then the calculation, the MOS, will tell you whether it is safe. They are very, very expensive. As you could understand, you saw the amount of paperwork. All of this is slut. And this goes to prove that slut is safe for human use, used 4 times a day, quite robustly. If it fails, it has to go back to the perfumer, and the perfumer has to reformulate it. So within an industry, you're not seeing this. You're not seeing the stability testing. Stability testing is when you take the concentrate. I do both, the finished, and you test over a 12-week period at different conditions, freeze and thaw, 35 degrees, and you test the pH. You test the viscosity, you check the colour, you check the fragrance. So you have 3 parts to a public information file, and that is the safety assessment, the challenge testing, the stability testing. They all go together to make sure the product is safe. That is coming out of the money that you spend for fragrance. On top of that, you have the perfumer's wage, you have the marketing wage, you have this wage, you have that wage. When a fragrance goes into places like Selfridges, they take 60% of that money off. So 60% of 100 quid, let's say, gives you £40. Out of £40, the company has to pay all these people and make a profit. So sometimes it's not as easy as it comes. We sometimes think, oh, how can this company just do this, when the main company can't, because the main company gets 60% smashed off and then has to pay quite a lot of people before it makes a profit. Which is why smaller companies like myself, we can afford to use real rose, real oud, all these things. I can use more expensive raw materials because my costs are quite low. And that is why I will probably never go into these big companies, because I just can't afford. If you think one of my fragrances costs £145, if I smash that in half and start taking on more staff, there'll be no money left over. My fragrances should be 3 times the expensive for the amount of oud I'm using in it. I use real oud, and use real rose, and use all these fantastical raw materials. And that's what you guys are sort of figuring out who are using my stuff. It has an addictive quality, it has like a really delicious quality, and it is the amount of naturals, the amount of rose, the amount of tinctures and exciting things. If my company gets massive, I don't know quite how I would do that. I'm sort of seeing that the stuff I'm selling, I'm like, at this moment in time, I'm taking one person on, and I'm thinking when it gets up that big, I don't know quite what we're going to do about costs and things. And take onto account all the packaging. My packaging, which I'm just about to buy, is massively, massively, massively expensive. So, you know, I'm going to try not to put the prices up, and I'm trying to lower it because I had such a saving on one of the musk and some sandalwood that I can lower it down because it just felt so unethical. So try to understand there is much more going on in cosmetic companies' lives than just a fragrance and a profit. It is so much love, care and attention that goes in, and safety. I hope that's giving you a little bit of insight. I will, as I said, I will try and do the more scientific side to perfumery and science, but I find it particularly exhausting, especially when doing so much. But please bear with me, it is in my, I will try to do what I try to do. Have a fantastic day, stay safe and well, see you soon.